We got kind of a crazy video here. It says, teen laughs after battering pedophile to death. Let's get into it.
20th, 2024. And at HMP Fossway, the world's most high-tech prison, located in Leicester, England, inmate 21-year-old Thierry Robinson has just exited his cell after being let out for the day. He's captured here on CCTV with the exited his cell, England. Inmate HMP Fossway, the world's most high-tech prison, located in Leicester, England. Inmate...
Nigga, that's prison in England? You get robes like that, bro?
21-year-old Thierry Robinson has just exited his cell after being let out for the
What?
day.
That
He's
nigga
captured
looks
here on
comfortable, bro.
CCTV with a huge
What do you
grin on
mean?
his face, heading over to his neighbour, 18-year-old Ashiri Smith. After waiting for him momentarily, the pair walk down the block and head over to the other side, to a cell belonging to convicted paedophile Mahir Mohammed. When they re-emerge, there's no sign of Mahir. Now, one might take a look at this and think there's nothing wrong. However, ladies and gentlemen, something serious just went down in Mahir's cell. And if you hadn't guessed it by now, Thierry Robinson and Ashiri Smith had just murdered a paedophile. If you're wondering why HMP Fossway looks more like a hotel than a prison, well, that's because it's classified as Cat C. Prisons in the United Kingdom are ranked in categories, A being the most secure, home to some of the country's most dangerous people, all the way through to Category D, which is essentially a big home that prisoners have to live in, instead of going to their actual residence. In a Cat D prison, some of the inmates are allowed to leave to go to work or study, and then return. If they prove that they can do that over a period, they're even allowed to spend multiple days out of the prison and stay overnight at an approved address, say with a girlfriend, for example. HMP Fossway isn't quite that. Again, it's a Cat C resettlement prison. In other words, it's a highly secured facility that's designed to prepare inmates for reintegration into society without leaving. It offers certain amenities such as access to a gym facility, five-a-side football pitches, a music studio, computers within the cell, and even offers educational workshops in various sectors. So yeah, that's why some of you may think it looks like a...
So, why hurt somebody and waste that opportunity that they're giving you? I don't understand people, bro.
I mean, to be fair, you wouldn't be by yourself in thinking
I get what he did is wrong, but
when
like,
it
bro,
first opened back in 2023,
that's just stupid.
the prison made headlines for exactly that. Online critics compared it to a luxury hotel. They said, at the bare minimum, it was better than student accommodation. Over the past couple of years, HMP Fossway has gone viral for both positive and negative reasons. On the one hand, you had YouTuber Mr. Who's the Boss dub it the world's highest tech prison, while on the other hand, you had inmates within the prison filming TikTok videos complaining that sex offenders were being put on certain wings where they'd be able to see women and children who were visiting the facility.
What the hell?
This is HMP Fossway. We're on E block at the minute, and we're looking over to F block and the car park.
See, nigga, I gotta think
the jail
before I
wants
speak.
to put the nonsense on E and F wing, so when people's visitors and children come to visit people, they can see the car park and they'll be stood at the windows doing nasty things to the people's visitors. We want to protest about this. And the visits go straight in where you can see now. It's not good because, like I say, this E and F block look over the car park and we don't want them our kids. It's not fair. They should not get this block and where they can see public human people coming in. It's an outrage, and it needs a petition that it wants moving down.
Y'all hear that?
It's a not get this block and where they can see public human people coming in. It's an outrage, and it...
Alright, look. Is that somebody else in the cell telling him to say that shit? Or is it one of the guards telling him to say that? But like, dude, if you say this, you'll get this. So woody woo. Everything on me. I know y'all heard that.
It needs a petition that it wants moving down to... They can have A and B block. And people's families that come into the jail, we need to get them to petition as well and protest against them, because they can't be on the outside fence looking at all the kids and the people coming in.
He's only forced to say that shit.
And we're on E block. HMP Fossway, Nonce Palace. It's the pedo palace of England, and they want it to make it so they can see us kids from the fence. It's not happening. Please watch this video and please protest against it. Put a petition against it. These nonsense cannot come to the fence.
One of the sex offenders who was mixed in with the inmates was 31-year-old Mahir Mohammed. His image bizarrely hasn't been published, and there's only a small section in the news as to why he even ended up in HMP Fossway to begin with. Mr. Mohammed had been jailed for an online conversation with a girl whom he thought was in her early teens. The girl was a decoy set up to snare paedophiles. The vigilante group behind the snare reported him to the police, and he ended up being jailed at HMP Fossway. For that conviction, he was handed a 35-week prison sentence and was due to be released on August 21st, 2024. So yeah, Mahir had been caught by an online sting group and had landed himself in jail. We don't know what his time was like in the jail for the most part, but according to a report, his life had been made a literal living hell in the few weeks leading up to his release. This would have been around the time he crossed paths with his killers, Ashiri and Thierry. Those two, by the way, are infamous in their own right. Yes, this story takes a whole other turn when we come to find out that one of them is a relatively famous and successful UK drill rapper, and the other made national headlines for being extremely brazen with a firearm. Thierry, known by his alias Trills, has been making music for some years. His videos have racked up millions of views. However, he wasn't just a rapper, he was also a drug dealer, and that's how he ended up in HMP Fossway for 5.5 years. It was the circumstances surrounding Ashiri's arrest back in late 2023 that made news outlets from across the country pick up on his story. He had videoed himself dancing with a loaded gun. For that, he was jailed for 3.5 years in April of 2024. HMP Fossway was where he was going to call home while serving his sentence.
Nigga, them is musky bullets.
Be a Walther self-loading pistol made in Germany. Appears to be a 9mm with a 19 round capacity.
Once Mahir had crossed paths with the pair, they subjected him to weeks of verbal taunts and physical attacks due to the nature of his offending. On August 19th, 2024, just 2 days before he was due to be released, Ashiri had visited Mahir's cell on 12 different occasions. While there, he verbally insulted him and physically assaulted him. Towards the end of the day, Mahir threw a kettle filled with boiling water through the gap of his cell door, which hit both Ashiri and Thierry. It was a revenge attack. This had been the first time he retaliated. Given the fact he was due to be released on the 21st, he probably thought he'd have been alright for a day. However, according to a report, as the hours went on, he asked to be moved to a different part of the prison as he feared for his life. Reality set in. That move wasn't granted, and well, you know what went down the following morning. At around 7:45 AM on August 20th, 2024, Mahir Mohammed had been found unresponsive in his cell by a female prison officer. He had been repeatedly punched, kicked and stamped over the course of around 37 seconds. Thierry and Ashiri couldn't appear weak after the kettle attack. It marked Mahir for death. His prediction was correct. He would officially be pronounced dead by paramedics around an hour after the attack. His eventual cause of death was a bleed to the brain. The investigation was swift, the pair were banged to rights, and eventually they were charged with murder. They surprisingly denied the charges that were placed against them and went on trial in the spring of 2025. In the end, Ashiri was found guilty of murder and was sentenced to life imprisonment with the minimum term of 17.5 years, whilst Thierry Robinson was found not guilty of murder but was found guilty of manslaughter and received an 11-year prison sentence. So, some of you may be sitting there asking yourself, how did a convicted paedophile end up on the same wing as normal inmates? And well, simply put, HMP Fossway, like many other prisons in the United Kingdom, are throwing all inmates in together because we have a prison overcrowding crisis. No, like, literally, within 19 months of HMP Fossway being built, it was 98% full. Both the Conservative and Labour governments have tried to get a grip of the situation, but nothing's really worked. Yes, more prisons are being built, but that takes years, and with a prison population on the rise, it means they just can't keep up. They've got other measures in place as well, like releasing some inmates early. That includes violent sex offenders, by the way, but to no surprise, some people just can't be fixed, and they end up back in jail a short while later. We've all seen the headlines recently. This further adds to the problem. Regarding sex offenders, Justice Secretary Shabana Mahmood announced that the government plans to introduce chemical castration in 20 prisons across England and Wales to help potentially alleviate this problem. According to reports, inmates within these 20 prisons will be asked first to volunteer. It will be a pathway to release. If all goes well and successful, they then plan to roll it out as a mandatory sentence to again help reduce the prison population. So, how does the British government take control of this situation then? If you have any suggestions, I'd like to know what you guys think in the comments section below, because every time I see them offer a solution, another problem always seems to emerge. For example, chemical castration is one thing, but what's the solution for other violent offenders? Because
we may never know. Holy smokes, bro.